What's up guys, so today I am bringing you the long-awaited video on how to grow your glutes and legs scientifically. So as you can see on the picture on the left, my body fat percentage is pretty high compared to the picture on the right, where I've been able to bring down my body fat percentage while increasing my muscle mass. And I want you to be able to do the same and reach your goals. So today I'll be sharing with you what I've learned along the way, what are the things that you should avoid, and what are the things that you should focus on. I'm going to break down the video into two parts. First, we're going to recognize the problem. What are the issues that are stopping you from seeing the results you want, and what is delaying your results. Secondly, we will be talking about what are the things that we can do to basically fight that and see the results you want. In order to actually do the right things, you have to know what is it that you're doing wrong. So let's first talk about that. Now, when I first was looking for somebody that could train me and teach me the right thing to do, I was really having a hard time because many trainers I tried to and reached out to were only focused on the money that they can get from me instead of actually teaching me the right way. And they usually just give you a one-size-fits-all workout plan that wasn't customized to my body type and goals. And it had little to no weight training, and if it does, it's usually just like, oh, do three set of 12 of this and 4 set of 15 of this and this and that. And nobody was focused on teaching me and giving me as much information as I needed. Personally, I'm not going to just do something just because you tell me to do it. I actually like to learn what is the reasoning behind doing it. And so I started researching and learning the science behind bodybuilding, and I started digging deeper each and every day. And so I learned a lot, and I want to share that with you. The first thing I want to talk about is all the misleading information out there that I have fallen for before. And the very first thing is how many fitness models basically care about what they can get out of you using their discount codes from, promoting all these useless flat tummy teas and fat burners and one-size-fits-all workout plans and exaggerating the importance of supplements instead of actually teaching people the right way. I've had plenty of opportunities to be a part of brands, which not only would boost my followers, but also my income. But personally, I remember all the times that I was looking for a good trainer who cares. And so I am not going to do that. And I would hate to lie and say that all I do is drink this flat tummy tea in order to stay lean year round and this and that. The truth is, if you want to get rich and famous, you often have to put your moral principles aside. And as y'all could see that, the more skin you show, the more people will follow you. However, personally, I don't want to grow by lying to people and showing my body in a swimsuit. I want to grow by teaching people the right way, giving people the right information they need in order to transform their bodies as well. Now, one of the major misleading information that a lot of fitness models give and preach about is how you shouldn't go heavy so that you don't look too manly and this and that, and how you should just do high reps in order to tone your muscles. First of all, there's no such thing as toning your muscle. Your appearance is actually a combination of your muscles and your body fat percentage, and a 5x5 is just as good as an 8x10 and as good as a 12x15 rep regime, and all of those are different mechanisms of building muscle. I'll get more into that later on. They also mislead people by saying that you need to switch up to all these new weird exercises that they record, and they look good on camera, but however, there's no need to be changing your exercises every 2 to 4 weeks. Real research shows that changing exercises should only be done every 2 to 4 months, and it can be going from a regular back squat to a box squat. Something like, going from a glute bridge to a hip thrust, and honestly, constantly or too often changing up your exercises will only delay your results, and you're far better off focusing on 5 to 10 quality exercises and performing them with proper form and a structured plan rather than doing 100 different exercises with no plan. There are a lot of training variables that you can change besides changing the exercise itself, whether it's training intensity or whether it's the volume, frequency, exercise tempo, improving your technique, and all of those things. So I'll be talking more in depth about those later on as well. But now we're going to talk about the actual glute muscles, and we're going to try to understand the science behind glutes and how you can be able to achieve the results that I did. So yeah. Now let's talk about the actual glute muscles. As you can see, your glutes is made up of 3 muscle groups. The very first one and the biggest one is the gluteus maximus. It's actually the biggest muscle on your whole entire body, pretty much, and it attaches to the side of the sacrum and femur, and is responsible for extending and externally rotating the hip joint. It actually creates the forward thrust as you walk, run, or rise from squat, and it's made up of equal amounts of fast and slow twitch muscles, meaning that you have to use a well-balanced type of training in order to target it better. A study done by Brett Contreras showed that the barbell hip thrust is the king of all exercises when it comes to building your glutes. And the reason for that is because it allows for a greater range of motion, and the load is directly over your hips. So it forces your glutes in order to push the weight up, and basically you have to use your glutes in order to perform this more than your quads or hamstrings or any other muscle group. While you're doing this, you want to find a bench and lay against it, and you want to plant your feet on the ground and kind of pad the barbell so that it doesn't hurt you. And you want to keep your knees stable and raise the barbell by extending your hips and push your hips upwards with your glutes. You want to contract your glutes at the top really tight and just squeeze. And you want to make sure that you're forming a straight line from your shoulders to your knees, and that you're not arching your back. So that's very important, because if you arch your back, it's going to hurt your back a lot and it's going to cause you some problems. So you don't want to do that. Another thing I like to do to recruit my gluteus maximus a little more is based on a 2014 study done by Lee and colleagues, and it basically showed that externally rotating your toes can help you target the gluteus maximus more. And so that's what I do whenever I do squats or glute bridges or this exercise. What I like to do is externally rotate it a little bit, and it helps a lot. Another thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing the barbell hip thrust on any compound lift is that you need to activate your muscles by doing some activation drills and exercises prior to going to your compound lifts. This was studied by Fisher and colleagues in 2016, and basically doing these drills definitely does help recruit the muscles a little more, and also it will save you from causing some injuries to your muscles. Something like this could work. As you can see, I'm externally rotating my toes in order to target my gluteus maximus a little more, and I do higher reps in order to activate the muscle. Now let's talk about the gluteus medius, and the reason why I'm breaking down all three muscles is because it's important to train each muscle specifically the way it should be. Otherwise, you're not going to have that perky round look. So particularly this muscle sits partway under the gluteus maximus and connects the hip bone to the side of the upper femur. And it helps you externally rotate your leg whenever it's extended behind you, and internally rotate your hip whenever your leg is flexed in front of you. And together with the gluteus minimus, this muscle is what helps you abduct your hips. It helps you stabilize, and that's the reason why it can be targeted better with the split stance kind of workouts and exercises, but I'll get more into that later on. Another thing to keep in mind about this muscle group is that it's more slow twitch muscle dominant than fast twitch, which means that you can target it better by doing higher reps in order to double up this muscle group. The study I mentioned earlier by Lee and colleagues also suggested that internally rotating your toes will help target this muscle a little better. As you can see, this exercise, for instance, as you can see, I have my toes pointed inwards, but please do not do this. This is only for some exercises like the cable kickbacks. Do not do this on a squat or anything like that, because that's absolutely terrible. It's gonna really mess up your form if you do that on a squat or a deadlift or anything like that. Only for like cable kickbacks or something like that you want to do this to target the gluteus medius a little more. On the other hand, another study done by Kristen Bourne and others kind of compared the different levels of activation of the gluteus medius using different rehabilitation exercises, and they compared the EMG values recorded for each exercise. And from their studies, the highest EMG value was recorded for the side plank abduction. And as you can see on the tables, they have the different values that they compared, and the side lying hip abduction is one of my favorites for the gluteus medius. As you can see, I'm performing it right here, and basically, since your gluteus medius is one of the major muscle groups that helps you abduct your hips, it gets targeted by exercises like this, whether you're doing it lying or whether you're doing standing. It's really good to target your gluteus medius. And when you're doing this, you want to do it slow and controlled, as you can see here. Another one is any kind of thing, whether it's a split squat or a kickback or whatever it may be, as long as it requires your single leg to be planted on the ground, it helps recruit your gluteus medius very much, because your gluteus medius, like I mentioned earlier, is one of the major stabilizers. And so therefore, when you're doing anything like this, it gets recruited more than anything, because you have to use your glutes in order to stabilize yourself and not fall over and tip over. All right, so now that we talked about the gluteus medius, let's talk about the smallest muscle of them all, which is the gluteus minimus. And even if it's a small muscle, it's very important that you don't neglect it. It's the muscle that helps you abduct, flex, and internally rotate your hips. And you'll use this muscle whenever you're making circular movements with your thighs. And this muscle group is also made up of more of the slow twitch muscles than fast twitch muscles, same as the gluteus medius, which means that it responds better to higher reps than lower rep schemes. And a research done by Moore D and others showed that the hip abduction and isometric contraction isolated this muscle more than any other movements. And so what you want to do is do these kind of exercises. As you can see, it kind of helps you have an isometric contraction and kind of abducting your hips and rotating and doing some circular movements with your thighs, recruit this muscle more. And doing a higher rest scheme will help you recruit it better as well, because it's made up of more slow twitch muscles than the fast twitch, unlike the gluteus maximus. So anything like the fire hydrants that I'm doing here, these are called fire hydrants. I know it's crazy. The name is crazy, but it is what it is. So you just kind of do it really nice and slow and controlled, and you want to engage your core. So you don't want to arch your back. Don't do that. Don't arch your back. Not here. What you want to do is keep your core tight. Keep your back straight and neutral. Okay, if you arch your back trying to look good or whatever it is that you may be doing, you're gonna hurt yourself, and I don't want you to hurt yourself and blame it on me. So I want to make sure that you listen to this. When you do this, keep your back straight. Don't worry about how bad it looks or anything like that. Just make sure that you're doing it right, and you also want to do it really nice and slow. You don't want to be kind of like swinging it up and down with momentum. You want to actually recruit the muscle. The lying side leg raises also work good for this muscle group, since you're basically performing abduction movement. All right, so now that we learned all this information about the glute muscles and all of those things, how do we take all this information and come up with a plan that takes all of these things into consideration and is structured in such a way that will give you the best results possible? Now, the first thing that you need to note is that there are 3 different mechanisms in order to build muscle. The very first one is metabolic stress, which is usually what I do at the beginning and end of my workout. As you can see, this is the beginning of my workout, and I am starting off by doing that. And this is the type of training that gives you a burning sensation and a pump. And the burn or the pump is also called the metabolic stress. And the most important thing here is to keep a constant tension on the muscles with no rest in between reps. And it can be achieved by doing 15 to 30 reps with shorter rest range, maybe about 30 seconds or less. And while doing this, it helps activate your muscles. It helps activate your glutes and get them ready for the compound movements. A study done in 2017 by Marcelo Coronado and others showed that it's very important to do these kind of drills in order to recruit the muscle even more when you do your compound movements. And this is crucial because basically in the beginning of your workout, that's where you want to have the mind to muscle connection. You want to build that before you go into your compound movements like squats or deadlifts or whatever it may be. And that's very key, because we usually sit around at your job or school or whatever you might be doing. Your glutes are not active, which is basically why it's hard for most people to feel their glutes whenever they do their squats. They say, oh, I feel it on my quads, but I don't feel it on my butt. That is why, because it's not really active. You're not having that mind to muscle connection. And that's important. That's the reason why I do these kind of drills in the beginning of my workout, in order to have that mind to muscle connection and give me that burning sensation and the pump. So that way, when I go into my compound movements, I'm able to feel my glutes more than anything. Now, this one I'm doing right here is side to side. And so at first, I think I started off with glute kickbacks. And when you do it, make sure that you're, doing it with a tight core. So you're, kind of bracing your core, I guess you could say. And so while you do this, you want to make sure that you have a controlled motion. As you can see, I'm keeping my back straight as well. And you want to start off with something like that. Not necessarily do all of these exercises that I'm going to show in the beginning, but you can pick maybe 2 or 3. You can save this video onto your watch later, and basically kind of just pick 2, and you can do any one of these. So you can either do the first 2 that I showed, or you can go ahead and do this one. Now this one is a glute bridge with a little bit of abduction at the top. And the reason why I like to do this is because I'm able to recruit both my gluteus maximus and also minimus and medius. So when I do this, I squeeze really tight at the top and do an abduction movement to also include the gluteus medius and minimus, because otherwise you're not going to have that round look. You want to make sure that you're recruiting all of them. I also like this one a lot. I don't know why, but you know, whenever I do a closed leg, I have more control and more, I'm able to squeeze more. And so it's a variation of glute bridge. And so, you know, whichever you feel it the most, but personally, I like these as well. The next one I'm doing is the frog pumps. Yeah, I know it sounds really ridiculous, but yeah, that's what it's called. And so with the frog pumps, you want to do the same thing. Basically, you're going to be squeezing your glutes at the top. This helps target your glutes more. And as you can see, these are the lying side abduction that I was doing earlier for your gluteus medius and minimus. It's really nice to have a nice, slow and controlled movements that can help you recruit the muscle more and get it ready for the major compound movements. And yeah, so once you do these, what you want to do is feel that sensation and go into your major compound movements like squats. So the second mechanism of muscle building is caused by mechanical tension. Mechanical tension on the muscle is essentially a result of progressively overloading the muscle and forcing it to grow to withstand the added weight each week. And the heavier the weight, the greater the tension. And so a stronger muscle is potentially a bigger muscle. And I use this for all my compound lifts, whether it's deadlifts, squats, barbell hip thrusts, Romanian deadlifts, and I do about 3 to 5 sets with lower reps, maybe 3 to 8 reps or so, and I do longer rest times, 2 to 5 minutes or so. Now, it's very important that you have some form of mechanical tension in your routine, because if you just do metabolic stress type of training and you're doing higher reps with whether you're doing glute bridges or kickbacks or bodyweight squats, you can only do so many, and your body's going to get used to the amount that you're doing at some point. And if you keep adding reps and you're not adding any weight, you're not going to see the change that you want, because our body is very adaptive, and you're going to get used to it at some point, and you're not going to be able to see the change you want. So it's very important that you add a mechanical tension type of routine to your workout. And that's the reason why I like to add weight, about 5 pounds each week, sometimes every 2 weeks. It doesn't matter, depending on how you're feeling. And as long as you're progressively overloading, you'll see change, because you're constantly increasing the tension on your muscles, which will force your muscles to grow. All right, so my favorite one to start with is squats, and the reason for that is because they're one of the major, really great exercises that you can do for your overall development. And when you do them, you want to make sure that you're keeping your back straight and going low enough. The next one I'm doing is deadlifts, and when I'm doing deadlifts, I want to make sure that you guys understand that it's important to keep your back straight, and you want to rotate your toes externally a little bit on each side. And when you start the movement, you do not want to arch your back, and you do not want to hunch your back neither. You want to keep it completely neutral. And this is very important, because people do it that way, and I've done it that way when I first started, and it was hurting my back so much, and I don't want you guys to go through the same thing that I went through. So you want to avoid those mistakes and keep your back neutral. Use a weight that you're comfortable with. You don't have to go heavy when you start. You start with what you can lift. I started off lifting 20 pounds for my deadlift. So do the same thing. It's okay. It's nothing to be ashamed of. As long as you're progressing and all of those things, don't worry about who's looking at you, and just focus on yourself and kind of understand that it's better to do it properly than to get injured. Now, when I do this, as you can see, I'm squeezing my glutes at the top, and I'm keeping a constant tension on my legs. And I also like to do the sumo deadlift as one of my compound lifts. And so when I do the sumo lift, the difference is that your stance is going to be a little wider compared to the regular deadlift. And as you can see, it's much wider. And what you want to do is keep that back straight and keep your tension on the legs basically as much as possible, and try to have as much connection. I feel the sumo squats more on my hamstrings and glutes than the regular deadlift, but both of them are really great for building mass in general. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is the Romanian deadlift. When you do this, you want to sit back, and basically it's almost like there's a bar chair behind you and you're sitting back at it. And so you want to make sure that you're extending and stretching those hamstrings all the way down. Like I said, you want to also make sure that your back's straight for this one as well. So please make sure that you're using a weight that you can handle. And so as you can see, this is what I'm doing, and I'm keeping a slight bend on my knees. Here I'm doing a stagger stance single leg deadlift. This deadlift particularly allows you to lift heavier than a single leg deadlift because you're stabilizing yourself with the other. You're challenging one side at a time, and it gives you the chance to improve your imbalances. Personally, I have an imbalance on one of my legs is bigger than the other, so it's really great to do that, to fix that. And whether you have an imbalance or not, it's really great to target one side at a time. And if not, you can just do a regular stiff leg deadlift like this one. And as you can see, I'm sitting back and stretching my hamstrings all the way and keeping my knees with a slight bend. And so when you do this, you can also do this with closed leg, and you want to make sure that you're keeping attention throughout your muscle. Now let's talk about the third mechanism of muscle building, which is muscle damage. Muscle damage is basically a combination of sets, reps, and load, and how the exercises are being performed. A good way to achieve it is to do maybe 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 15 reps with 1 to 3 minutes at rest. And you want to make sure that you're doing it all controlled and slow movements throughout the exercise. And I use these after I do my major compound lifts using any accessory movements. And so what I do is basically just think about the mind to muscle connection. As you can see, this I'm doing the cable pull throughs and really slow and controlled, and stretching my hamstrings and glutes all the way and squeezing. This one that I'm doing is a Bulgarian split squat. And while doing that, you want to make sure that you keep the tension on your legs, and it really helps with single leg strength and stability. It also increases your flexibility. It's one of the best exercises to target your core, hamstrings, quads, everything, glutes. Everything is the best. Right here I'm doing some goblet squats. It's another accessory movement that I like to do, and I like it a lot because it doesn't put a lot of tension on your back, and it's also really easy to perform. And when you do it, it really engages your core, keep your core tight and nice. It's one of the best ones that you can do. The next one I'm doing here is going to be lunges. So I love lunges because they're a single leg exercise, and they activate more of the gluteus medius because you have to stabilize yourself. And so I finish off with something like that. I do lightweight lunges, and then I complete everything with something like this, which is abduction movement. And I go back to the metabolic stress and perform higher reps of up to 30 reps. So the next most important thing that we need to consider is training frequency, and research shows that your muscle do not grow more than up to 48 hours after you training. So training the same muscle group 2 to 3 times a week is generally ideal for most, and I train glutes about 2 to 3 times a week, and I use a mechanism called daily undulating periodization. And DUP is a very smart way of training in order to gain muscle. And also build strength at the same time. It's one of the best ways that you can do both at the same time. And I love it. I love it for my clients. And so you should look into it and learn more about it. If you want to apply it to your training, it will definitely increase your gains. This is backed up by a lot of research, like I said, and actually one of the most recent ones was done in 2016 by Zordos, MC, and others. And they tried to compare the traditional configuration to the DUP type of training, and they saw a greater performance in the athletes when they do the DUP. So the next most important thing is nutrition and sleep. If you want to lose weight, you have to be eating on a calorie deficit. And if you were trying to gain weight or muscle, you have to be on a calorie surplus. And otherwise, you're not going to grow by eating 900 calories a day, honey. It's just not going to happen. you know, so you want to be eating more in order to be able to build any kind of muscle whatsoever. Another thing I really suggest is to stay away from processed foods and start eating wholesome, nutrient-dense foods such as lentils, sweet potatoes, avocados, almonds, beans, all of those things. And I post a lot of healthy recipes on my Instagram and also on my YouTube channel, so you can watch some of these in order to learn how to meal prep for only $25 or less and eat healthy every week. So yeah, and another thing is you can be able to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, which is called body recomposition. However, this process is much easier for beginners and people that are out of shape, since their bodies are much more responsive to muscle growth when they start weightlifting than people who've been working out for a while. However, my DUP based workout plans are designed to help you do that, even if you've been training for years, even if you've been training before, you're able to see a massive change within a short period of time. So you can contact me regarding that. Another thing is you need to make sure that you're sleeping. You have to get at least 7 hours of sleep in order to see any kind of growth whatsoever. So start applying these things to your training, and I promise you that you will start seeing a massive difference. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and make sure to check out my 12-week glute guide that considers all of these factors that I mentioned. It's well structured and designed to help you reach your goals, and it's got so many different details that you can use in order to maximize your results. Whether you're a beginner or intermediate lifter, it applies to DUP, so it will help you reach your goals much faster. Like, subscribe, and support my channel as well, so that way I can get motivated to upload more.